Have you ever heard of a place so haunted that even hardened paranormal investigators are too scared to stay the night? Today, we're journeying into the dark heart of Philadelphia, to a fortress of fear known as Eastern State Penitentiary. This isn't just a spooky old building, it's a place where the echoes of suffering still scream through the decaying corridors. Opened in 1829, Eastern State wasn't your typical prison. It was a revolutionary experiment in criminal reform, built on a Quaker-inspired idea called the Pennsylvania System. The goal was to force prisoners into solitary confinement to encourage penitence, a word that literally means feeling sorry for your sins. Inmates lived, ate, and worked entirely alone in their cells. They were completely isolated, with only a Bible for company. When moved outside their cells, guards would place a thick black hood over their heads to ensure they never saw another human face. This system was designed to reform the soul, but in reality, it shattered the mind. Imagine the silence, broken only by your own thoughts, day after day, year after year. The profound isolation drove many inmates insane. The silence of the day was often shattered by the screams of men losing their grip on reality, their cries swallowed by the cold stone walls. The prison's design itself is intimidating. It looks like a medieval castle, with massive stone walls and imposing guard towers. The cell blocks radiate out from a central hub like the spokes of a wheel, allowing a single guard to observe all the corridors at once. It was a marvel of architecture, but a nightmare to live in. Inside each cell was a small skylight, called the Eye of God, the only source of natural light, meant to remind the inmate that God was always watching. But for the men locked inside, it was just a constant reminder of the world they could no longer reach. One of the most infamous figures in Eastern State's history was the notorious gangster Al Capone. He spent 8 months here in 1929 on a concealed weapon charge. But Capone's stay was hardly typical. His cell, now famously known as Al Capone's cell, was lavishly furnished with fine rugs, oil paintings, and a high-end radio. It was a stark contrast to the barren, torturous existence of the other inmates just a few doors down. While Capone listened to waltzes, others were subjected to brutal punishments. One of the most feared was the mad chair, where an inmate was strapped so tightly that their circulation was cut off, leaving them in agony for days. Another was the water bath, where prisoners were dunked in ice-cold water and then hung on a wall to dry in the freezing winter air. And then there was the hole, a pitch-black underground cell with no light, no human contact, and barely enough room to stand. It's no wonder the tormented souls of these prisoners are said to still linger. By the mid-20th century, the solitary system was abandoned, and Eastern State became a traditional, overcrowded prison. Riots and violence became commonplace. The prison finally closed its doors in 1971, left to crumble and decay for decades. But even in abandonment, the stories didn't stop. They just got stranger. Today, Eastern State Penitentiary is a historical landmark and a hotspot for paranormal activity. It's often called one of the most haunted places in the world, and for good reason. Visitors and staff regularly report chilling experiences. The most active area is Cell Block 12, known for disembodied laughter and shadowy figures that dart down the corridor. People have heard cackling that seems to come from nowhere, echoing through the empty cells. Another hotspot is Cell Block 4, where visitors have seen the ghostly figure of a man's face, contorted in anguish, appearing in the doorway of a cell before vanishing. One of the most famous stories involves a locksmith named Gary Johnson, who was working to remove an old lock from a cell door in Cell Block 4. As he struggled with the lock, he felt a massive force overcome him, as if he were being held down by invisible hands. He reported feeling a wave of negative energy and seeing distorted, tormented faces swirling around him in the cell. He was so terrified, he fled and refused to ever go back inside that block alone. Tour guides often hear their names whispered by unseen voices, They report doors slamming shut on their own and the sound of phantom footsteps pacing the empty cell blocks. In the central guard tower, a shadowy figure has been seen standing watch, a silent sentinel from a bygone era. Some people have captured photos with strange mists and unexplained figures, while others have recorded electronic voice phenomena, or EVPs, capturing faint whispers and cries from the past. The most common report: the sound of weeping, coming from cells that have been empty for over 50 years. One particularly eerie tale comes from the prison's infirmary. This is where inmates suffered from diseases like tuberculosis and where crude medical and psychological experiments were allegedly performed. Visitors have reported feeling an overwhelming sense of sadness and dread in this area. Some have even felt a ghostly touch on their shoulder or heard the faint sounds of coughing and moaning. It's as if the pain and suffering of the sick and dying have been permanently absorbed into the very walls. The prison's dark history and the countless reports of paranormal encounters have made it a must-visit for ghost hunters. Several television shows like Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures have conducted investigations here, and nearly all of them have captured compelling evidence. During one investigation, the team heard a blood-curdling scream from a cell block that was completely empty and locked down. They also recorded an EVP of a voice clearly saying, "I'm not here." It's these unseen screams and phantom whispers that truly make Eastern State a terrifying place. So are these just stories, the product of an active imagination in a creepy old building? Or are the tortured souls of former inmates truly trapped within these walls, forever reliving their torment? The sheer volume of consistent first-hand accounts from credible witnesses suggests that something truly unexplained is happening at Eastern State Penitentiary. The pain, the madness, the despair, it seems to have seeped into the stone, creating an atmosphere so thick with sorrow you can almost feel it. The screams may be unseen, but for those who dare to listen, they are very, very real. What do you think? Would you be brave enough to spend a night locked inside Eastern State? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for joining me on this journey into one of America's most haunted locations. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next chilling adventure. Stay curious and stay safe.